At our wedding, just as I was about to exchange rings with my fiancée, her scheming ex pushed his son in front of her. The kid looked up with pitiful eyes and asked for everyone to hear, "Mommy, why are you marrying this man? Don't you want me and Daddy anymore?" My fiancée, who never lies, just smiled, took the boy's hand, and explained, "Honey, I was just playing pretend with this man. Now Mommy is gonna marry Daddy." A wave of murmurs swept through the ballroom. Everyone expected me to fly into a jealous rage. Instead, I said the child came first and happily handed the ring to her ex in the audience. Seeing how cooperative I was, my fiancée beamed and promised she'd give me a healthy baby boy someday, too. But she seemed to have forgotten one tiny detail. We hadn't signed the marriage license yet, and now I had no intention of ever signing it. Just as I stepped off the stage after agreeing, a collective gasp went through the crowd. I turned around and saw a photo of their little family of three light up the big screen. The kid was the spitting image of my fiancée, Emily. The photos cycled through the boy's birth, his 1-month celebration, even his first day of kindergarten. She was in every single one. She was smiling brightly in every picture, each one carefully labeled with the date and time. This was all news to me. It turned out that every time she'd bailed on our plans, using a business trip or overtime as an excuse, she was actually with him and his son. My girlfriend had a whole other family she was hiding from me. A video started playing on the screen, showing the child from birth to his first words. It was a heartwarming scene. The first word the little boy said was "Mama." On stage, Emily saw this and grabbed the child, covering him in kisses as tears of joy streamed down her face. Her old flame, Ryan, wrapped his arms around them both. Holding a microphone, he said emotionally, "You've been by his side since the day he was born. You worked while taking care of his every need, feeding him, changing him, putting him to bed. There aren't many selfless mothers like you in the world today. Emily, the boy and I are so grateful for you." As soon as he finished, a staff member brought a gift box onto the stage. Ryan opened it, revealing a custom-made trophy. He presented it to Emily with great solemnity. Engraved on the plaque were the words, "To the world's best mom, juggling a career and a family with a smile." The crowd erupted in envious cheers. Many people pulled out their phones to capture the beautiful moment. Only I stood there with a bitter smile. My parents died a long time ago, and I don't have any other relatives, so I've always wanted a child of my own. But every time I brought it up, Emily would burst into tears, complaining about the terrible job market and how she'd be fired if she got pregnant. She said she wanted to focus on her career for a few more years, promising that afterward, she would stay home and have kids to carry on my family name. I just smile and let it go. I didn't care about carrying on a family name, I just wanted more connections in this world. But every time she started crying and complaining, I felt for her. I didn't want her to suffer, so I decided we could just be child-free. As for family, having her was enough. But then her work hours got longer and longer, and she started staying out all night. Whenever I politely asked about it, she would always cry and vent to me. My boss is a monster. He makes us work overtime every day and even cut our pay. But I'm just one step away from a promotion. I can't give up now. Just give me a little more time. I promise I'll make it up to you as soon as things calm down. I trusted her. I never doubted a single word she said. Who would have thought that her one step away would turn into a 5-year-long journey with no end in sight? I never understood why, but in that moment, watching the family of 3 embrace on stage, it all became crystal clear. I had taken on all the household responsibilities to clear the path for her, hoping to help her achieve her dreams. But she had willingly shackled herself for another man. The memory of her vowing to become a career-driven woman felt like it was just yesterday. Comparing that to the scene in front of me now, it all seemed like a joke. On stage, Emily was crying as she hugged Ryan. "Thank you. This is the best gift I've ever received in my entire life." The moment she finished speaking, confetti cannons burst overhead. As pink petals rained down, a stunning wedding photo of the two of them appeared on the screen. The crowd screamed again, their faces filled with blessings. No one found this bizarre, because all the guests were Emily's friends. When we were planning the wedding, She said she didn't want to invite any relatives we didn't like, insisting on a young people-only celebration. Back then, I was naive enough to think she was just being considerate of me not having any family, that it was just an excuse to save me from embarrassment. Kiss, kiss, kiss. It wasn't until I heard the crowd chanting that I finally understood. This was all a setup for Ryan and his son's grand entrance. And to think I once felt guilty that such a simple wedding wasn't good enough for the woman who'd been with me for 7 years. Right then, Emily, her face flushed, caught my eye. She stopped short of kissing him and just squeezed his hand instead. A disappointed sigh went through the crowd. Just as I was about to leave, the lights suddenly dimmed, and a spotlight hit the entrance. Emily's mother appeared at the wedding in a wheelchair. Seeing that kind old woman, my eyes welled up. My parents passed away a long time ago, and Emily's mom, feeling sorry for me, always took extra special care of me. When Emily and I were dating, she always insisted I stay for dinner, saying I should get to enjoy a mother's cooking. Later, she fell seriously ill and became partially paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair for life. I quit my job and took care of her for 5 years. In my heart, I had long since come to see her as my own mother. As I was lost in thought, a powerful shove from behind sent me crashing into a table. My arm immediately started to bruise. Ryan suddenly appeared in front of me, feigning bewilderment. "Leo, buddy, I just bumped you by accident. You don't have to fake a fall and play the victim, do you?" Emily, who had been about to help me up, froze and shot me a disappointed look. Just then, Emily's mom wheeled herself over to us. I opened my mouth about to greet her, but Ryan beat me to it, calling out "Mom," as he moved past me to push her wheelchair. Emily's mom, who always used to say that I was the only son-in-law she'd ever recognize, now smiled and accepted his greeting, holding his hand and chatting warmly. So, everyone knew the real groom was Ryan. I was the only one left in the dark. I stood up, rubbing my bruised arm. Seeing that I was about to leave, Emily's mom suddenly called out to me, "If you're going to leave, take off the suit first." It was custom made to match Emily's dress. Meeting her cold, unfamiliar gaze, my heart sank. Right? An outsider is always an outsider. She was Emily's mother. Of course she would side with her. Countless probing eyes were fixed on me, making me extremely uncomfortable. I struggled to peel off the tight-fitting suit jacket and tossed it to Ryan. Ryan dusted off imaginary lint and slipped it on. It fit him perfectly. Seeing this, I suddenly laughed. No wonder. I had been wondering why the custom suit felt so tight. It wasn't the suit's fault. It was just the wrong person wearing it. Ryan stared at my pants. "Leo, this jacket doesn't really go with the rest of my outfit. You wouldn't mind changing out of the shirt and pants for me too, would you?" There was no color clash. He was just trying to humiliate me in front of everyone. Seeing guests raise their phones, I turned to leave. Suddenly, a wheelchair blocked my path. Emily's mom stared at me coldly, her voice firm. "Take them off. Emily bought those clothes. You have no right to walk out of here with them." Emily didn't stop her mom or Ryan from cornering me. Instead, she stood to the side, looking at me with a reproachful, hesitant expression. Witnessing it all, I just smiled faintly and nodded. "I'll go to the dressing room and change." Ryan pouted. "Leo, buddy, no need to make it so complicated. What's the big deal about changing here? It's not like anyone hasn't seen it all before. All that back and forth is just a waste of time. Besides," he added, "people wear a lot less than this at the beach. You're not some shy little girl, are you?" I clenched my fists and walked toward Ryan. Seeing I was about to lose my temper, Emily quickly stepped in front of him, grabbing my hand. "Ryan was just joking. Why are you taking it so seriously?" The young people in the crowd started to jeer. "Seriously? Can't even take a joke? No wonder Emily's marrying someone else. This Leo guy is so boring." The wedding had turned into a farce. Emily's mom glared at me furiously. "Enough! Are you going to be happy only when you've completely ruined Emily's wedding?" I looked at Emily's pleading eyes and found it ridiculous. My wedding gets hijacked, and somehow I'm the one causing a scene? Arguing with this bunch of morally bankrupt people was a waste of breath. I didn't say another word and turned to leave. Mom, I'll go with Leo to get the clothes. Emily offered a quick explanation and then hurried after me. She burst into the dressing room at the worst possible moment, her voice uncharacteristically soft as she tried to explain. I'm sorry. My mom's getting old and can be unreasonable sometimes. Please don't be mad at her. She was the one who insisted I marry Ryan today. She's sick and can't handle any stress, so I had to play along. She called it playing along, but the joy in her eyes was real, and so was the love she had for that child. In the past, I would have been consumed by jealousy and demanded to know if she even loved me. But now I felt nothing. Yeah, I get it, I said, completely unfazed. Emily, who had been bracing for a fight, froze and gave me a surprised look. Thinking I had finally learned my lesson, she smiled and threw her arms around me. I know you've had a tough day. When we get home, we can start trying for a baby of our own. I didn't say anything. She took my silence as a sign that I was placated and walked off with the clothes. I used to be that easy to win over. A hug, a promise, and no matter how angry I was, it would all melt away. She thought that promising me a baby was enough to make up for the humiliation I'd suffered today. But she seemed to have forgotten. We still hadn't signed the marriage license. And now I had no intention of marrying her, let alone having a child with her. I went home alone. The house was a mess, cluttered with delivery boxes, all of them filled with children's items Emily had bought. When I first found them, I thought Emily was pregnant and was hiding it to surprise me. I was so happy I couldn't sleep at night. I never imagined they were for her secret child with another man. I sat in a chair, staring blankly into space. I looked around the familiar house, a place that held 7 years of my memories. I used to think that even though the house was small, everything about it was warm. Emily was always busy with work and often away, but every time she came back from a business trip, she would remember to bring me a small gift. She would hold me tight and whisper sweetly, "You've worked so hard." Emily's mom was always scolding me, but I just chalked it up to her being sick and in a bad mood. But thinking back on it now, I realize how naive I was. The gifts Emily gave me were always household items like aprons, gloves, and laundry detergent. She'd always say with feigned concern, "I don't want you to suffer," while trapping me at home, outsourcing the care of her paralyzed mother, a responsibility that should have been hers, to me. Looking back, it all became clear. Their sudden change of heart at the wedding wasn't a random event. It was just that they didn't need me anymore, so they dropped the act. If that's the case, then it's time for me to leave. I shook my head, collecting myself. Then I noticed a small gift box on the table. A red, heart-shaped sticky note was on it. It read, "Happy birthday, Leo. Forever yours, Emily." Below it was her playful signature and a little kissy face emoji. It was a thoughtful gift, but I felt none of the joy I would have in the past. I couldn't even be bothered to open it. I just tossed it straight into the trash. I went back to my room to pack. Over the years, I had filled Emily's closets with clothes and more bags than she could hang. But when it was my turn to leave, my belongings didn't even fill a single suitcase. I shook my head with a wry smile and pulled out a box of mementos from my 7 years with Emily. Besides the daily necessities we'd used up, all that was left were a few framed photos and the love letters she'd written on postcards. Even so, I had cherished them, storing them away with the utmost care. But now I no longer cared about these fake trinkets. I gathered them all up and, along with my love for her, carried them out to the trash. When I came back from taking out the garbage, the house was brightly lit. The 5-year-old boy was sweetly calling Emily's mom grandma, and she was beaming, stuffing one red envelope after another into his pockets. It was Ryan's son, Mason, the little star of the wedding fiasco. Now, their family was gathered together, enjoying a happy, harmonious moment. My untimely entrance shattered the warm atmosphere. The moment Emily saw me, her smile vanished. Her face hardened as she demanded, "Why did you throw away the birthday present I got you? Do you have any idea how much thought I put into picking that out for you?" I glanced in her direction and saw that she had fished the gift box out of the trash. After her outburst, she tore open the box herself and pulled out a brand new apron. I just let out a short, contemptuous laugh, and said nothing. After blowing up, Emily calmed down again. She was always like that, a brief flash of anger, followed quickly by a remorseful apology. I used to think she just had a good temper. Only now did I realize she was just an expert at faking it. And I had been fooled for so many years, only now seeing her for who she truly was. She walked over, wanting to put the apron on me herself, her voice returning to its usual gentle tone. You said your old apron was getting worn out and you wanted a new one. With all our expenses, I thought we could just make do. But then I thought I was being unfair to you. So I had a custom one made for you. It even has your favorite one-piece design on it. Do you like your birthday present? Emily looked at me expectantly, genuinely waiting for my answer. But I just found it absurd. We had been together for 7 years, not 7 days. I knew all her preferences and little habits like the back of my hand. I always got her gifts she loved for her birthday and even cooked to her tastes. But how could she know absolutely nothing about me? Who on earth would want an apron for their birthday present? Even a coffee mug or a pair of sunglasses would have been more practical. I was so amused I couldn't be bothered to reply. At my side, Ryan's face lit up. He took the apron to admire it, giving Emily a big thumbs up. Wow, this gift is amazing, he gushed. Emily, this design isn't official merchandise, is it? I've never seen it before. Emily's gloomy mood vanished. She laughed, pleased, and explained proudly, of course not. I hired an artist to draw it for me. It cost me over $2,000. I just wanted to give him a surprise. $2,000 could have bought so many things, but she just had to spend it on a custom design that was useless to me. Ryan was laughing so hard his stomach hurt. He shoved the apron at me. Leo, buddy, go on, try on your gift. See if it fits. Don't let Emily's kindness go to waste. He was clearly mocking me, trying to make me look like a fool. I turned and looked at him calmly. If you like it so much, it's yours. Ryan's face darkened. Just as he was about to curse me out, Emily raised an eyebrow and flatly refused. No way. You don't give someone an apron as a gift. Ryan, if you really like the design, I'll have a custom figurine made for you tomorrow and ship it over. Ryan was overjoyed. Emily, you're the best. How did you know I love collecting anime figurines? Flattered, Emily's eyes crinkled with a smile, but she feigned modesty. Oh, it was nothing. I just saw you glancing at the figurine section when we were out shopping the other day. It was just a lucky guess. As Ryan showered Emily with praise, his eyes were locked on me in a defiant stare. You're so thoughtful, you think of everything. Any guy would be lucky to have you as his wife. I looked up at Emily. So, she knew that nobody would like an apron as a gift, but she gave it to me anyway. She wasn't just clueless, she was observant enough to notice Ryan's hobbies. But she couldn't be bothered to understand the man sleeping next to her. She couldn't even buy a decent gift and just played dumb. After joking around with Ryan for a bit, Emily noticed I was still silent and motionless. She grew dissatisfied. She grabbed the apron from the chair and tried to force it on me. You're unhappy when I don't get you a gift, and you're still pouting when I do. What on earth do I have to do to make you happy? I couldn't be bothered with her and shook her hand off. I hadn't tidied up the room as I usually would have, and Emily and her mom, used to being waited on, had no awareness of the mess. The room was now piled high with empty delivery boxes. I stepped over the mountain of cardboard, heading for my room to grab my suitcase and leave. They could play their little house game all they wanted. I wasn't playing along. Emily's mom, who had been playing with the child, saw me heading for my room and assumed I was trying to dodge my chores. She steered her electric wheelchair to block my path and immediately started scolding me. Look at the state of this house. You're not going to clean it up? Where do you think you're hiding? My daughter works her butt off to support you, not some freeloader who just eats and does nothing. Ich glänzte her. How could she say something so blatantly false? My salary used to be higher than Emily's. After she got sick, she lay in her hospital bed, listless, and grabbed my hand, pleading, if Emily quits this job, she'll never find another one this good. You're different. You have a degree and skills. You can always find another job. Leo, I know you're a good kid, and I know you love Emily deeply. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. At the time, Emily was sobbing by my side, unable to make a decision. To save her the trouble, I quit my job and stayed home to care for her ailing mother. That was 5 years ago. They knew perfectly well that all these years, I'd been living off my own savings. It wasn't until my card was declined 2 days ago that I asked Emily for money for the first time. Just once. And all I asked for was $500 for groceries. But in her mother's mouth, I'd become a good-for-nothing bum who only spent her daughter's money. I glanced at Emily again. She was looking down, silent, tacitly agreeing with everything her mother said. I found it laughable. I had devotedly cared for a paralyzed patient for 5 years, while Emily was out having a secret child. And now, both mother and daughter felt I owed them and demanded my tireless repayment. I was a fool before, but not anymore. Seeing me just standing there, Emily's mom's face darkened, and she snapped, "Are you dead? Why aren't you cleaning up?" Emily finally looked up at me. She didn't seem to think her mother's words were out of line. Instead, she tugged at my shirt, raised an eyebrow, and said, "It's a happy day. Don't upset Mom. Just go and clean up." I still didn't move. As the atmosphere grew tense, Ryan chimed in with false sincerity. "Mom, don't be angry. It's normal for people to be lazy sometimes. I'll do it. I've always been a hard worker." Before he could even pretend to start cleaning, Emily cut him off, her voice full of concern. "No, you're a guest. Just sit down." Then, she looked at me with disappointment and complained, "See how quick-witted and diligent Ryan is? Why can't you learn from him? When did you get so lazy?" For 7 years, I'd handled all the housework, taking care of them in every little detail. One missed cleaning, and I was a lazy bum in her eyes. And Ryan just had to offer lip service for Emily to praise his diligence. The difference between being loved and not loved was glaringly obvious. I didn't want to argue with them anymore, but my first act of defiance had clearly annoyed them. Emily just leaned against the wall, sulking. Her mother, however, lashed out with a vicious verbal attack. Just as I thought. A kid with no mother to teach him has no manners. I couldn't take it anymore. I kicked a chair over with a loud crash. 5-year-old Mason burst into tears. With that, the fragile peace was shattered. Emily rushed to comfort the child while screaming at me, "Are you crazy? Isn't what my mom said the truth? If you had any manners, would you be throwing things around in front of everyone?" Looking at their ugly faces, I stormed into my room, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. Emily stood stunned for a moment before asking, "Where are you going this late?" Without turning back, I said, "Emily, we're breaking up." Emily froze, then blocked my way, raising an eyebrow. "Seriously, Leo? You're gonna break up with me over something this small? Small?" I looked at her with a cold smile. "You had a baby with Ryan while we were dating. Is that a small thing too?" At that, Emily suddenly laughed. A dirty mind sees dirt everywhere. "Mason is my cousin's and Ryan's son. My aunt passed away a long time ago, and then my cousin died right after giving birth. I was just helping take care of the kid. What's the problem with that?" Ryan chimed in, a look of exasperation on his face. "Leo, buddy, you're so ungrateful. If I had a wife as kind and devoted as Emily, I'd welcome her whole family into my home to care for them. I wouldn't be selfish like you, only thinking about yourself." They started ganging up on me again, tearing me down until I felt worthless. But if the child was her cousin's, why all the secrecy? Why did the boy have to call her mom? And why did she have to ruin the wedding I'd been dreaming of and humiliate me in public? I looked up and saw the same expression of disgust on both the mother's and daughter's faces. At that moment, the truth no longer mattered. I couldn't be bothered to respond, but Emily was still pressing me. "Why can't you learn from Ryan? He's so considerate. He even knew you felt wronged and told me not to forget to throw you another wedding." Crocodile tears. If he were a decent person, he wouldn't have proposed hijacking my wedding in the first place, instead of making phony offers of compensation after the fact. Ryan stood up, pretending to play peacemaker. "I should have just died with the boy's mother. Our lives don't matter. Please don't let me ruin your relationship. I'll take the boy and jump into the river right now. We'll disappear from your lives for good." With that, He grabbed Mason's hand and started dragging him toward the door. The child immediately started wailing. "Mommy, I don't want to die. Make the bad man go away." Emily's face darkened, and she grabbed my suitcase. "Leo, stop this.
I'm exhausted.
Can you please stop causing trouble for me?" Her mother started shouting curses. "Emily, let him go. I'd like to see where a homeless man like him can go." Yes, I was homeless. I had sold the house my parents left me to pay for Emily's mom's medical treatments. And now I had spent all my savings on them. That's why they thought they had me under their thumb, that I couldn't leave them. But what they didn't know was that even though I was at home, job offers had never stopped coming in. I only stayed because of my love for Emily. But now that love was gone. As I picked up my suitcase to leave, Ryan stepped forward, pulled a wad of crumpled cash from his pocket, and stuffed it into my hand. "Leo, you don't have any money, do you? I'll lend you some for a hotel. Once Emily and her mom have calmed down, you can come back." I glanced at him disdainfully. "Weren't you going to jump in a river? You should probably keep this money to buy yourself an urn." Emily, who had been about to try and reason with me again, heard this and furiously kicked my suitcase out the door. "Get out, and don't ever come back." The door slammed shut. I picked up my suitcase and stood in the cold wind. I found a hotel to stay in for the night and called my old college buddy. "Mark. Mark, about that offer you made me before. I'll take it." On the other end of the line, Mark's voice was filled with excitement. "That's great, Leo. You finally came to your senses. But are you okay with an overseas assignment? It would be for at least 3 to 5 years. I told him it was no problem. Mark laughed. "I'll throw you a welcome party tomorrow. You can meet your new colleagues." For years, I had sacrificed my career for Emily and her mother. Now it was time for a fresh start. I agreed, and after a bit of small talk, I hung up. After a quick shower, I was lying on the hotel bed, comfortably scrolling through videos. Suddenly, a video from Ryan popped up. I opened it without thinking. Emily was in the kitchen, wearing the apron she had wanted to give me, busy cooking. But in my memory, Emily was so inept she could burn a simple stir-fry. Ever since she nearly set the kitchen on fire that one time, I never let her near the stove again. I even did the dishes. But now, Emily was flipping a heavy wok with one hand. Her movements so skilled she looked like a chef who had been working in a restaurant for 10 years. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan followed. "Leo, your wife's cooking is delicious. You've never had it, have you? You really are an idiot. Emily's been an amazing cook since she was 13. She just pretended she couldn't cook because she didn't want to wait on you. And you actually believed her." I stared at the mocking emoji he sent and didn't reply. I should have guessed. Emily had been lying to me for 7 years. I took a deep breath, about to turn off my phone. But then another message from Ryan came through. "Do you know why she chose you 7 years ago?" My hand froze. Even though my heart was dead and I no longer loved Emily, I had always been puzzled by one thing. If Emily never loved me, why did she pursue me so passionately 7 years ago? She would bring me breakfast every day, follow me around, and tell me over and over again how much she loved me. When I was struggling at work, she would hold me and comfort me. Finally, Emily had orchestrated a beautiful scene in a fancy restaurant and confessed her feelings to me in public. In the end, I couldn't resist her passionate advances and fell head over heels. In my memory, she was bright and enthusiastic, and her eyes were always on me. That's why I never understood her true motives. But now, Ryan's photos and words cleared up all my confusion. Emily and her cousin both had a crush on me. The two of them fought over it, and it got really ugly. I gave them each 2 months to impress me, and I would choose one of them at the end. 2 months later, they each booked a restaurant and waited for me. My choice wasn't Emily. But Emily didn't want the scene she had prepared to go to waste, so she called you over. I can't believe it actually worked out for you two. And you're the real joke here. You actually thought it was love. They were just words on a screen, but I could hear the mockery behind them. No wonder Emily's confession felt so sudden. The music at the restaurant wasn't my favorite, and even the shoes she gave me were a size too small. At the time, Emily apologized with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't know your shoe size, so I bought the wrong one. When she cried, I was foolish enough to comfort her. For a long time after, I would look back on that moment and feel incredibly happy. But I never imagined that the whole elaborate confession was just Ryan's sloppy seconds. The daily breakfasts were also meant for Ryan. My portion was just his leftovers. I was just another fish in her sea, a backup plan after she was rejected. I turned off my phone and tried not to think about it anymore. Anyway, we weren't married. I still have a long life ahead of me. From now on, I'll live for myself. The next day, I got up and went for a walk. Around noon, I headed to the restaurant I'd booked. As I walked in, I saw Emily hosting a 5th birthday party for Mason. Her mom was smiling as she served Ryan food, praising him for being such a thoughtful and wonderful son-in-law. Ryan smiled back and said, "It's my pleasure." When he caught me out of the corner of his eye, he provocatively leaned in and gave Emily a light kiss on the cheek. Emily blushed and leaned against his shoulder. Just then, Mason, who was in her lap, saw me and pointed. "Mommy, the bad man is over there." Emily turned her head and, upon meeting my gaze, froze on the spot. Ryan stood close to Emily, a smirk on his face as he looked at me. "Leo, are you secretly following us? You're not trying to ruin the kid's birthday party, are you? If you're upset, take it out on me. The child is innocent. I'll apologize to you right now." With that, he suddenly knelt in front of me and started slapping his own face, drawing stares from the people around us. But only I knew that Ryan felt no remorse. He was just trying to stir up trouble and make Emily give up on me. That way, he could move into our home for good. Emily, who had been about to explain things to me, lost all interest when she saw this. She rushed to help Ryan up and glared at me. "You're disgusting. You're even targeting a child." And to think Ryan was generous enough to forgive your outburst yesterday and even persuaded me to forgive you and ask you to come home soon. Emily's mom wheeled over, also glaring at me fiercely. "Get on your knees and apologize to Mason. Otherwise, you can forget about ever coming back to this family." Ryan staggered to his feet. "How could I dare ask Leo to apologize? I just beg you to leave my child alone in the future. He's only 5, he doesn't know any better. It's all my fault for being a bad father and upsetting you. I'll down this whole bottle of liquor as an apology to you, Leo." With that, Ryan grabbed a bottle of Baijiu from another table, popped the cap, and started chugging it. Emily rushed to stop him, her voice filled with anguish. "Ryan, don't be impulsive. You can't handle drinking all that. Leo, are you dead? What are you just standing there for? Hurry up and apologize. Are you trying to kill him?" I watched the drama unfold quietly. A crowd had gathered. My friend Mark saw what was happening and rushed over to explain. "You've got it all wrong. Leo is here for his welcome to the company dinner." Emily froze, her anger subsiding as she looked at me curiously. "A welcome dinner for you? Why didn't you talk to me before you found a job? If you're not at home, who's going to take care of my mom?" I was about to speak. Emily's mom cut me off, her voice triumphant. "Emily, you don't have to beg him. If he wants to leave, let him. Ryan can take good care of me too." Ryan, reeking of alcohol, quickly made a promise. "Mom, taking care of people isn't that hard. From now on, you can leave all the little things to me." Emily praised him with a smile. "Ryan, you're so kind. Unlike this selfish jerk Leo, who only thinks about himself. If I had known he was this kind of person, I never would have agreed to marry him." She was obviously saying these things for my benefit. She wanted to make me jealous and compete with Ryan. But I just found it laughable. They say that even the most devoted child grows weary of caring for a sick parent, let alone an outsider with no blood ties. Caring for a patient for a day or two might be fine, but over the long term it would drive anyone crazy. I was curious to see how long Ryan could keep up his devoted act. Beside me, Mark suddenly raised an eyebrow at me. "Leo, didn't you say you weren't married? Married employees can't be sent on overseas assignments. If you're caught hiding it, you'll be fired. Don't get me in trouble, man." His company did have that rule, and I had told him I was unmarried. We were supposed to get our marriage license, but she bailed on me for Ryan and his son, so we never got it. She'd forgotten all about it. I was about to explain. Emily's eyes suddenly lit up. Thinking she had me cornered, she said smugly, "If you dare to leave, I'll report you and get you fired. You wouldn't want to drag down your kind friend who helped you, would you?" I had given up almost everything for her, and now she was trying to clip my wings and trap me in this cage forever. I smiled. "Report me? Emily, have you forgotten that we have nothing to do with each other anymore?" Emily's face hardened. "Even if the wedding wasn't finished, it doesn't matter. No matter what, I'm still your wife. You can't just leave me and my mom and go abroad." I laughed coldly and pulled my ID and household registration booklet from my bag, pointing to the word unmarried. "Emily, did you forget that we never actually got the license?" Reminded of this, Emily suddenly froze. She always had a terrible memory when it came to things about me. After we failed to get the license, I had mentioned it once. But she had just given me a dismissive reply. "It's not a big deal. We can get it later when we have time. There's no rush. Let's have the wedding first." I thought she had a point, so I didn't push it. But back then, neither of us could have imagined that things would turn out like this. So now, I could just turn around and walk away from her, completely untethered. Emily's gaze was still fixed on the word unmarried, and she seemed lost in a daze. It was Ryan who quickly stepped forward. He hadn't expected me to actually let go, but he still took Emily's hand comfortingly. He looked down, feigning concern, but his words were inflammatory. "Emily, it looks like he never planned on being with you for the long haul. You're just too gullible, and he's been playing you this whole time." I rolled my eyes at him, speechless. If I were really the person he described, I wouldn't have given up so much for Emily, only to end up with nothing. But at this point, arguing was pointless. They could say whatever they wanted. I was leaving anyway, out of sight, out of mind. Emily, who had been in a daze, snapped out of it when she heard Ryan's words. She stared into my eyes, sensing that something was different. When she saw that I wasn't faking it, her heart began to panic, and she tried to get me to stay. "Leo, there have been some misunderstandings between us lately. Let's go home and talk things out. Arguing and giving each other the silent treatment won't solve anything." I looked at her coldly. What misunderstanding was there between us? It was just one side refusing to play along anymore. Meeting her loving gaze, I just gave a contemptuous smile. "Emily, we're over. There's nothing to solve." With that, I gestured to Mark, ready to go into our private room for dinner. Mark had been standing by my side with his arms crossed. Seeing the growing crowd of onlookers, some of whom were curiously raising their phones to take videos, he raised an eyebrow. "Nothing to see here, folks. Let's all disperse and get back to what you were doing." The crowd reluctantly scattered. Only Emily remained, her mood somber. Her eyes were locked on me, as if she would lose the most important thing in her life if she blinked. As Mark and I were laughing and chatting on our way into the private room, "Leo," she called my name, trying to catch up to me. Emily was still expecting me to stop, turn around, and wait for her with open arms, just like I used to. But I didn't. I pretended not to hear her, not even turning my head. Behind me, Emily suddenly cried out and fell. Ryan called her name anxiously, rushing to help her up. But Emily was only focused on calling out to me. I used to cherish Emily so much that even a small bump or scrape would send me into a panic. Once, during a fight, she twisted her ankle while walking. I swallowed my anger, rushed her to the hospital in my arms, and yelled for a doctor to save her. The doctors and nurses all laughed at me, calling me an over-anxious young man. It was just a sprain, nothing serious. But I was still heartbroken and blamed myself. Why did we have to argue in the first place? Couldn't I have just given in to her? Now she was suffering because of me. It was after that incident that I became the one to always back down first, to apologize first, no matter what. Looking back now, I had to wonder if it was my constant indulgence that turned her into the person she is today. I shook my head. It was all over. It was all in the past. Whether she really fell or was faking it, I felt no emotional reaction at all. Mark and I walked into the private room, completely oblivious to the look of sorrow on Emily's face behind us. Inside the private room, things got rowdy, and we all drank a lot. Mark, drunk, was regaling the younger colleagues with stories of my glory days. Valedictorian, top of my major, recruited by a top domestic company right after graduation, promoted to manager right after starting. Listening to him recount these achievements, even I felt a sense of disbelief. They all peppered me with questions about why I left that top company, giving up all the fame and fortune. In response, I just smiled and dutifully took 3 penalty shots. The cold glass in my hand brought back buried memories. Back then, I was grieving for my deceased parents and longed for the warmth of a home. Even though I had money and a promising future, every time I came home to a dark, empty house, I wished for a light to be left on for me. That's when Emily appeared out of nowhere. She took me home after I got drunk, and as I was drifting in and out of consciousness, she handed me a bowl of hangover soup. The moment I looked into her eyes, the emptiness deep inside me was instantly filled. I fell for her head over heels. I thought I could give up everything for this family. My position, my money, myself. But after I had given my last drop of energy, the beautiful dream was shattered in an instant. They still had the same faces and acted the same way, but I knew deep down that it was all a facade. When the bloody truth was laid bare before me, I lost even the ability to be angry. All I felt was a deep, soul-crushing exhaustion, like a machine with its batteries ripped out. As I was lost in thought, Mark threw an arm around me and tried to get me to drink more. The gloomy mood was swept away, and I drank without any inhibitions. The party went on until late at night. I stumbled out of the private room, reeking of alcohol, and said goodbye to Mark and my colleagues. I was dizzy, and the road in front of me seemed to be swaying. I looked ahead and, in a daze, saw Emily standing at the entrance, waiting for me in the cold wind. For a moment, it felt like we were back before we started dating. No matter how late I was out drinking, the first person I would see when I came out was always Emily. I asked her why she waited for me, how unsafe it was for a girl to be out so late at night, but she would just smile, her eyes crinkling. We live in a safe society now. It's not that dangerous. But you, on the other hand, you drink so much. I'm afraid you'll pass out and freeze to death on the side of the road. Her concern wasn't unfounded. The winters here were harsh, and there were always news reports of drunk people freezing to death outside. I didn't say much, just made sure to get a taxi to take her home after she saw me off. I thought that after we got together, we would be this happy forever. But after we started dating, she stopped waiting for me. Once, I really did pass out on the side of the road and woke up stiff from the cold. When I got home, she didn't ask a single question, just habitually poured me a glass of hot water. At the time, I felt a sense of emptiness, but I comforted myself by thinking she was just too busy with work. But looking back now, I see everything clearly. She just didn't love me. She never did. In a flash, the heavy coat she had been holding was draped over my shoulders. Emily was shivering from the cold. She expertly linked her arm with mine, her dark eyes looking at me with a hint of pleading. Leo, stop messing around. Let's go home. Okay? Home? But that was her home, not mine. I didn't answer, just quietly pulled my arm away. A wave of disappointment washed over Emily's beautiful eyes. She awkwardly looked away, fidgeting with her red, frozen hands. Winter came so early this year.
I'm freezing.
She was deliberately chattering, making small movements to show how cold she was. I knew she wanted me to warm her hands. Emily always had poor circulation and was extremely sensitive to the cold. No matter how warmly she dressed, her hands and feet were always ice cold. Every time I saw her hands red from the cold, I would feel a pang of sympathy and grab them, putting them inside my coat to warm them with my body heat. Back then, she didn't need to make all these small gestures. I would always have hand warmers and heating pads ready for her, reminding her over and over not to get cold. But I could warm her hands and feet, but not her cold, unfeeling heart. She still chose to abandon me time and time again after Ryan appeared, always taking his side. Thinking of this, I took off the coat and handed it back to her. If I had worn the coat, she would have come looking for me later to argue about it. That would be too much trouble. Emily took the coat, still warm from my body, and put it on. A sweet smile spread across her face, and tears of gratitude welled up in her eyes. She seemed to have misunderstood something, thinking my gesture was a way of letting her save face. She went along with it, pressing herself against me, her voice soft. "Mom's been waiting for us at home. She was so worried about you when you didn't come back yesterday. You know how she is after all these years. Her bark is worse than her bite. Sometimes she says harsh things. Please, for her sake as an elder, don't hold it against her. Okay?" In the past, whenever her mother said something hurtful to me, she would always use this excuse. Then she would bring up all the meals her mother had cooked for me before she got sick. At the time, I actually thought she had a point. The old woman was just sick and in pain, so she was a bit short-tempered. But hearing these words now, I just scoffed, unimpressed. Last night, Ryan hadn't just told me about the love triangle between him and the two sisters. He had also sent me a lot of videos. Emily's mom was constantly complaining about me. She said my cooking was bad. But didn't she know? She was a patient and had to take medication every day. Her diet had to be light. She blamed me for not being thoughtful enough, for having a blank expression every time I helped her into her wheelchair, as if I found her disgusting. But who could take care of a paralyzed old woman for 5 years and still maintain a bright smile every day? Besides a professional caregiver who did it for a living, probably no one. I took care of all her needs, kept her clean and comfortable, which was more than many families did for their own sick relatives. But she was still not satisfied. She even took Ryan's hand, put it on top of Emily's, and earnestly advised, "Ryan, you're both still young. You can have another child. Emily, don't be picky. With Ryan's handsome looks, your baby will definitely be beautiful." Emily shyly pulled her hand away and grumbled, "Mom, that's enough. Leo and I are a couple. If he heard what you're saying, he'd throw a fit again." Emily's mom was immediately displeased, her old face contorting with anger. "What's he got to be mad about? If it weren't for him being infertile, would you two still be childless after 7 years? Emily, Mom's been through this. You have to have a child. What will you do when you get old?" Emily's face was stern, and she didn't say anything. Just as the atmosphere turned awkward, Ryan's voice piped up. "Emily, Mom's just looking out for you. But Mom, you don't have to worry. Mason will take care of Emily when he grows up. Emily will always be his mother." At a look from Ryan, young Mason immediately hugged Emily's leg and started making grand promises. "Mommy, when Mason grows up, I'll buy you a big villa and hire 8 maids to take care of you." Hearing his childish words, Emily was moved to tears. Her mother praised Mason for being a good boy, saying she could finally rest assured. Ryan and his son had them wrapped around their little fingers. But all I saw was Ryan talking a big game while just filming videos on his phone. And Emily, looking disheveled, was feeding the child while also wiping her semi-paralyzed mother's mouth. Ryan was always casually mentioning how great the watch Emily bought him was, or how cool the backpack she got him was. He was just showing off to me how good Emily was to him, without ever doing anything for her in return. And Emily, infatuated with his good looks and sweet talk, was completely taken in. She would eventually reap what she sowed. As for her mother's comments about my infertility, I turned to look at Emily. She didn't understand what I was thinking. She fussed with her hair, trying to look her best for me. But I just rolled my eyes and looked away. Emily's mom had old-fashioned ideas and had been pushing for a baby for a while. But after Emily talked to her, she never brought it up again. At the time, I thought Emily had convinced her mother. But now it seemed she had simply thrown me under the bus. She told her mother I was infertile, which was why I was so good to them and wouldn't leave them. No wonder her mother, who used to be polite to me, suddenly became so demanding and her attitude worsened. So Emily had been pulling the strings all along. As for me being infertile, that was nonsense. Once we had agreed to try for a baby and went for a checkup beforehand. The results showed that both of us were perfectly fine. The doctor even said that we were at the best age for having children. When the doctor finished his recommendation, I was ecstatic, but Emily was panicking. As we were leaving the hospital, she grabbed my hand, her eyes red again. "What am I going to do? If I have a baby, I won't be able to work, and my body will change. I've heard giving birth is really painful. What if I die on the operating table? She clung to me, crying all night. I felt sorry for her, so we dropped the idea of having a baby and never mentioned it again. She was the one who never wanted children. Now she was lying to everyone with all sorts of excuses, just so she wouldn't have to have a child that would take away the attention from Mason. And she probably didn't even love the child that much. It was just a case of wanting what she couldn't have, the unattainable always being the most desirable. Suddenly, I felt something hit my back. Keychain fell at my feet. I stopped and looked back, confused. While I was lost in thought, I had been walking forward, leaving Emily far behind. She had called my name several times, but I was so distracted I hadn't heard. Seeing that I had finally stopped, she ran to catch up, her voice tinged with a whiny complaint. "Why are you walking so fast? I can barely keep up." She used to be the one following behind me, and I was always the one who stopped and waited for her to catch up. But now I was no longer willing to wait for her. I gave her a faint smile. "It's fine. You'll never be able to keep up with me again." Emily, who had been about to playfully punch me, froze at my words. "What do you mean by that?" It meant exactly what it sounded like. But I shook my head. There was no need to explain it to her. Quickened my pace and walked away. I had lived in the city for 8 years, 7 of which were with Emily. I was familiar with every blade of grass and every tree. A single glance could trigger a flood of memories. We swung on the swings under the trees until a crying child came and demanded our spot, and the child's grandmother chased us away. We walked off, complaining about how annoying bratty kids were. We would run and play in the alleyways. We once rescued a stray cat that was close to freezing to death. We took it to the vet and brought it home, but it didn't survive the winter. Emily cried for a long time over that. Countless small memories flooded my mind, but these cherished moments were being deleted one by one with every determined step I took. A cold wind blew, chilling me to the bone. I pursed my lips, so love could be faked. I wandered aimlessly, and by the time I reached the hotel, most of the memories were gone. Just as I was about to go in, a familiar car pulled up in front of me. As the window slowly rolled down, Ryan's arrogant face appeared. He was aggressive. "Leo, you've gone too far. How could you just leave Emily on the side of the road so late at night? Do you know how dangerous that is?" He got more and more worked up. Emily, sitting in the passenger seat, pulled his arm and then smiled at me. "Ryan drove to pick us up. Get in." Ryan was stopped by Emily, but he didn't hold back. He pouted. Such a grown man, still acting like a little kid and running away from home. Then he looked at the hotel. "You don't even have a job. How can you afford to waste money staying at such a nice hotel?" "Emily, I really don't see what's so great about this guy that you've been supporting him for 5 years." I looked at Emily coldly. Ever since her mother got sick 5 years ago, I had been at home. I was clearly living off my own savings, but Emily told everyone I had been mooching off her for 5 years. No wonder her friends all looked down on me. It was because Emily never had a good word to say about me. But the moment I looked at her, Emily panicked. For once, she actually stood up for me. "No, that's not it. Leo has been using his own savings to take care of my mother these past 5 years. Even Ryan was stunned by her words. Soon after, he looked at me with contempt, pretending to praise me. "I was wrong, Leo. You're the master of frugal living. You don't even spend a penny of Emily's money. Unlike me. Over the years, I don't know how much of Emily's money I've spent on the kids' formula, diapers, and toys. And Emily even buys me little gifts from time to time. See, these limited edition shoes on my feet were a birthday present from her. Oh, and this belt, this car ornament." He rambled on, basically showing off how generous Emily was to him and how stingy she was with me. After talking himself dry, Ryan deliberately said to Emily, "Emily, am I spending too much? Maybe I should pay you back? It looks like you two are having a hard time." Emily completely missed the subtext. She thought he was genuinely feeling guilty and immediately comforted him. "How could you be a big spender? You deserve the best things in the world." Ryan laughed at her words, then turned to look at me as I headed towards the hotel. "So, I guess some people don't deserve these nice things. Emily froze, then suddenly looked up at me. It was only then that she seemed to realize what was happening. She quickly opened the car door, ran in front of me, and explained, "Don't get me wrong. I only gave him gifts to thank him for helping me. It's just a normal part of human relationships. You understand, right?" Ryan followed her out of the car, sauntered over to us, and chimed in, "Leo, don't take it personally. Emily's always been this grateful and kind. I just gave her an umbrella once, and to repay me, she bought me this lighter." With that, Ryan fiddled with his $5,000 lighter, a mocking smile on his face. He was stirring up trouble again, but Emily was completely oblivious. But whether she saw it or not, it had nothing to do with me anymore. Seeing me about to leave again, Emily grabbed my hand, her voice trembling with panic. "I've bought you gifts too. It's not like I never got you anything when I came back from business trips. I haven't mistreated you." I was about to ignore her, but her audacity defeated me. I retorted, "Stop playing dumb. Are household items really gifts? It's something the whole family uses, and you call it a gift for me?" At that moment, I really wanted to laugh. How stupid was I back then? Every time I received such a ridiculous gift, I actually thought Emily was thoughtful and frugal, that she didn't spend money recklessly. But now I knew. It wasn't that she didn't spend money, she just didn't spend it on me. My question left Emily stunned. A flash of regret crossed her eyes, and she quickly bowed her head in apology. "Then tell me what you like. I'll buy it for you." I had never asked her for a gift, but she really knew nothing about me. I wasn't expecting her to get me anything great, anyway, but I still felt that all those years of effort were not worth it. I dropped a "not interested" and walked past them into the hotel. Emily wanted to follow, but Ryan pulled her into his arms. "Don't worry, Leo's just jealous. Just buy him a little something, sweet talk him a bit, and he'll forgive you. All couples are like this. Fights just make the relationship stronger." Emily actually bought into Ryan's twisted logic. She didn't chase after me right away, but stood there, muttering in frustration, "But I don't know what to get him." Ryan smiled. "That's easy. Just ask his friends, right?" Emily grew even more troubled, her brow furrowed. She knew that I had been by her side all these years, and later, to take care of her mother, I had stayed at home. I didn't have many friends to begin with, and with this, we had even less contact. She had never asked about the few friends I had, nor did she have their contact information. Even when I invited her out, Emily would just wave her hand and refuse. "No thanks. You guys go ahead and drink and shoot the breeze. If I come, I'll just be a buzzkill." Back then, my friends all envied me for having such a gentle and considerate girlfriend. They would complain about their own wives, who checked up on them 800 times a day, demanding video calls and even making them lift the tablecloth to check for other women hiding underneath. I took their complaints to heart. At the time, I thought she was unhappy with me going out drinking and having fun, but she was just trying to be polite and save my face. After all, women want their partners to revolve around them, to be by their side. From then on, I rarely went out for gatherings. But I later realized that she wasn't being generous, she just didn't care. For her, after missing out on Ryan, being with anyone else was just settling. So there was no need to get too involved and waste her energy. Thinking of this, I smiled, took out my phone, and started reconnecting with friends I hadn't spoken to in a long time. After all, I was leaving soon, and I didn't know if I would ever be back. I had to say a proper goodbye. This was the first time I had initiated a gathering since I got together with Emily. They were all surprised and dropped everything to come and see me. We booked a table at a big restaurant. As soon as they arrived, the chatter started. "Leo, you called, and I even canceled a date with a girl. What's so important?" A guy with glasses behind him rolled his eyes. "Stop pretending. Everyone knows you broke up." The guy was speechless. "Yeah, we broke up. But I've already met someone new, haven't I?" They teased each other, and then the attention turned to me. "But seriously, Leo, did you and your girlfriend have a fight? You never used to hang out with us. Just break up with her already. There are plenty of other beautiful women out there. We can introduce you to some." I nodded in response. "Yeah, we broke up. My friends, who had been teasing me, froze for a moment. Then they slapped me on the shoulder, their voices filled with disbelief. Get out of here. As if you'd ever leave Emily. I even saw her shopping with another guy once. But you didn't believe me. You insisted she was just being kind and helpful. I suddenly remembered that time 5 years ago when Emily went to buy baby supplies with Ryan. She had told me about it. She had tearfully told me how hard it was for Ryan as a single father, and that she was just helping him by some necessities. My heart softened and I agreed. So when my friends brought it up, I had been predisposed to believe that their interpretation was wrong. They talked about how much I had given up for Emily. Not to mention quitting my job, I had been paying the mortgage on her apartment, and I had pulled strings to get her job. Wherever I was, I never allowed anyone to say a bad word about her. So they knew how much I cared about Emily, and they knew I couldn't bear to leave her. But that was the old me. Now I was strong enough not to need anyone to save me. I found a job. I'm going to be stationed abroad for 5 years. I might even settle down there and not come back. When I said this, their playful mood instantly turned serious. I had really given up on Emily and on this city that held her. After a long silence, someone said, "Good luck," and others offered their blessings. Someone else sighed, relieved. It's good that you broke up. You've finally come to your senses. Before, you were like a stubborn ox that couldn't be reasoned with. Not a single person in the room thought my breakup was a bad thing. They all thought it was a cause for celebration, even more so than my new job. Listening to them complain about the stupid things I had done in the past, I realized that Emily's flaws had been exposed long ago. Once, after a dinner party, it started pouring rain. Their girlfriends all came to bring them umbrellas. Although they arrived angry, they left with their boyfriends' ears being pulled. But Emily, who had promised to come and get me, never showed up, leaving me alone at the entrance. Several taxi drivers asked me where I was going, but I waved them away, saying my girlfriend was coming to pick me up. The restaurant wasn't far from home. It would have only taken Emily 10 minutes to drive over. But I waited until 3 in the morning, when the streets were empty and Emily still hadn't come. No reply to my messages, no answer to my calls. When the rain let up a little, I walked home, drenched. Emily was sound asleep in bed. Later, when the sound of my hairdryer woke her up, she even got up to complain about me washing my hair in the middle of the night. I was quite disappointed and just said flatly, "I got caught in the rain. I had to wash it." Emily rubbed her sleepy eyes and lightly tapped her forehead. "Oh my God. I said I would pick you up, but I went to the bathroom and forgot. It's all my fault. I've been working too much overtime lately. I'm so forgetful." With that, she took the hairdryer from my hand and finished drying my hair. At that moment, all my resentment vanished. Later, when I told my friends about this, I was beaming with happiness, but they just shook their heads and pointed out that Emily didn't care about me at all. But I just thought they were overreacting. Emily's personality was a bit carefree and direct, but she was usually very considerate of me. But thinking back now, I see a lot of holes in that story. A lot of the time, I was just convincing myself, assuming that her actions were a sign of love. The glass of wine in my hand was one after another. My friends thought I was in a bad mood and kept joking with me, even saying they would introduce me to girls. I thought they were just kidding and said with a smile, "Sure." But then, they actually started making calls to find girls to come over. A little while later, looking at the beautiful girls sitting in the private room, I face-bombed, speechless. The girls were much more direct. After introducing themselves, they pulled out their phones and asked to add me on social media. "Hey handsome, if we can't be lovers, we can still be friends." My friends also egged me on. "What are you being so shy for? You're single now. What's wrong with adding a friend?" I sighed and was just about to give in and scan the code when the door to the private room was suddenly pushed open. Everyone turned to look at the source of the noise. Emily stood at the door holding a gift box. She surveyed the room, gave me a dissatisfied look, and then declared her territory. "Hello everyone. I'm Leo's fiancée, Emily. I've heard him talk about you all so much. It's just that I've been so busy with work that I'm only just now getting to meet you. I'll drink 3 glasses as an apology. With that, she came to my seat, picked up my glass, poured herself some beer, and downed 3 glasses in a row. After she finished drinking, everyone in the room just stared at her coldly, without any reaction. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, Emily became a little embarrassed. She glanced at me, pouting and complaining, "You're a taken man. You need to know how to keep your distance from other women. Understand?" How ironic. So, she knew that people in relationships should keep their distance from the opposite sex. But when she was with Ryan, did she ever have that kind of self-control? Giving him all sorts of holiday gifts, taking care of his daily life, and even spending most of her salary on him. Now, I was just about to add a girl's contact info, and she was here to lecture me? Besides, we were already broken up. She had no right to control me. I completely ignored her and, with a smile, added all the girls in the room. Emily's face was so dark it looked like it was about to drip ink. The anger in her eyes was almost impossible to contain. Seeing her so defeated, I felt a small thrill of revenge. But I quickly shook my head, not letting my emotions run wild. I had invested so much in this 7-year relationship that I couldn't help but want to get something back. But on second thought, getting revenge on her was a small matter. I shouldn't be consumed by this unhealthy relationship. So, I readjusted my mindset and started treating her like a stranger. But my friends couldn't help but stand up for me. "Emily, don't you have Ryan? What? Did you realize he's no good and come crawling back to Leo?" Everyone in the room looked at her with contempt. Especially after they heard about the wedding incident, their dislike for Emily grew even stronger. This malicious staring, even without any insults, was enough to make Emily cry. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, sobbing, "Leo, are you just going to stand there and watch your friends make fun of me?" I looked up at her, confused. I used to be unable to bear seeing her suffer even the slightest injustice. I would always blindly take her side. I always believed that we could talk about the rights and wrongs of a situation at home, but if she was wronged outside, I had to stand firmly in front of her. But she was the complete opposite with me. Once, at a restaurant, the waiter forgot our order. We waited for over an hour. All the tables around us were full, and even people who had arrived after us were eating. We didn't even have water. I just said loudly, "It's been so long. Where's our food?" I was just annoyed from waiting so long, so my tone was a bit harsh. But before the waiter could even say anything, Emily pulled me back and scolded me. "Why are you yelling at him? He's just a waiter. His job is hard. And it's not like he did it on purpose. We're off today anyway. It's okay to wait a little longer." Her calm rebuke put me on the spot. I was just asking a question, not yelling. Besides, being tired is no excuse for messing up at your job. If you make a mistake, you have to fix it and take responsibility, not just whine about how hard your life is. At the time, I patiently explained this to Emily, but she barely listened and just gave a dismissive reply. "You're right, but you need to have a better attitude when you say it." I don't even remember how the rest of that day went. But after that, similar small incidents happened more and more frequently. I explained, I argued, but Emily always just brushed it off. Over time, I couldn't be bothered to waste my breath anymore, because the result was always the same. She would never change. She would always make me feel bad to feel sorry for others. But letting these small things slide just led to bigger problems. Until the fiasco at the wedding. Thinking about all this, and then looking at Emily's tearful eyes, I retorted coldly, "They're just joking." "What? Can't you take a joke?" "Just a joke." At the wedding, when Ryan was humiliating me and trying to make me look like a fool, that's what Emily had said. Now, I was giving her own words back to her, but she couldn't take it and started crying. Emily sobbed, "A joke is only funny if the person it's about thinks it's funny. Otherwise, it's just mockery. Leo, you're my boyfriend. How can you side with outsiders against me?" So she knew all along. She was just playing dumb. It was the same at the wedding. She knew Ryan was deliberately targeting me, and she knew her mother's words were vicious. But she still chose to side with them and make excuses for their behavior. In the end, I was the only one who got hurt. It all came down to the fact that I just didn't matter to her. But now that the tables were turned, she finally felt the pain. But she didn't reflect on herself. Instead, she blamed me for not protecting her. I just said indifferently, if you're not happy, you can leave. I didn't invite you. You came uninvited. My words left Emily stunned. She realized that the man who always protected her had really changed. Emily stopped arguing about that and just lowered her eyes, fiddling with her fingers pitifully. You always wanted me to come to these gatherings, but I was too busy with work to get away. Now that I'm here, you don't want me to be. I really don't know what you want, right? She was very busy. She had to work, and then after work, she had to cook for Ryan and be a nanny to his precious son. But for me, she didn't even have time for a single meal together. Seeing her playing the victim, I could only marvel at her thick skin and her ability to mentally exhaust others. With that kind of talent, she could achieve anything. I looked at her with a cold smile. Don't forget, the reason I wanted you to come before was because you were my girlfriend. Now, who are you to me? Why would I invite you? I had already broken up with her, but she was still clinging to me. I really didn't get it. If I was her backup plan before, what about now? She had Ryan by her side. Shouldn't she be telling me to get lost? Emily's face turned pale, and she looked like she had been deeply hurt, swaying on her feet. If I hadn't experienced it firsthand and known the truth, just looking at this scene, I would have thought I was a heartless jerk and Emily was just a poor woman trying to get her boyfriend to come home, only to be cruelly hurt. Her acting was top-notch. Even my friends were worried that I would see her delicate appearance and soften, taking her back. They even grabbed my outstretched hand, glaring at me and giving me a look that said, "Don't jump back into the fire." I just shook them off, annoyed, and pointed to the glass Emily had drunk from. I called out, "Waiter, this glass is dirty. Can you take it away?" The door was pushed open again. It wasn't the waiter, but a furious Ryan. He rushed forward, pulled Emily into his arms, pointed at me, and yelled, "Leo, you're a real piece of work. Emily came here with good intentions to comfort you, and you and your friends humiliate her like this? And after she even bought you a gift. Anyone else would have probably been moved. But I didn't react. My friends, who knew the whole story, just made exaggerated, sarcastic comments. Oh, well, it must be a big gift then. So, is it laundry detergent or dish soap? The box doesn't look that heavy. It's not a single-use sample, is it? The room erupted in laughter. Even I couldn't help but laugh at myself. The laughter was contagious, and the waiter timidly came in to replace the glass I had mentioned. Emily's face flushed with shame, and she rushed to apologize to me. "Leo, I was wrong before, but after you said something, I realized my mistake. From now on, I'll make it up to you and treat you well." With that, she opened the gift box in her hands. The box was indeed exquisite and small, with a handwritten card. It looked like she had put a lot of thought into it. I was just about to say that it was too late to make amends. Emily took out her gift. It wasn't a household item this time, but a small acrylic stand of the cartoon character from the apron she had custom-made. She held it out to me. "I wanted to get you a custom figurine, but there wasn't enough time. So I'm giving you this stand for now. I'll get you the other stuff later." My friends in the room burst out laughing. I was also speechless. I used to like One Piece, but that was back in my school days. I was almost 40 now. I hadn't been into that stuff for a long time. Besides, I just liked watching it. I didn't have a hobby of collecting merchandise. For someone my age, a watch or a tie would have been a much more thoughtful gift than this acrylic stand. And Emily not only knew nothing about me, but she couldn't even figure that out. But it didn't matter. I wouldn't accept whatever she gave me. Seeing that I didn't take it, Emily lowered her head, disappointed. Ryan jumped in to defend her, glaring at me. "I even gave up the figurine for you. That's enough. I'm giving you a way out. If you miss out on a great woman like Emily, you'll be the one to lose out." I looked at him with a cold smile. "I can't afford such a great woman. You can have her." At my words, Emily's sad tears fell like broken pearls. Ryan was still fanning the flames. "Emily is a person, not an object. You're insulting her." I snorted, not caring. However, for once, Emily didn't listen to Ryan. Instead, she grabbed my hand and asked, "Tell me what you like. I'll write it all down and buy you things you like in the future. Okay?" I ruthlessly shook her hand off. "I'd like you to stay away from me. You two can leave now. We don't have seats for you here." My reunion with my friends had been ruined by their drama. I started kicking them out. Emily's feet seemed to be glued to the floor. She refused to leave. It was Ryan who had to drag her away, pleading, "Emily, let's go. He's angry right now. Once he's calmed down a bit, I'll find a way to help you." Hearing this, Emily finally budged and left the room. After they left, everyone stopped smiling and looked at me with pity. It was only after witnessing this scene that they finally believed I had really moved on. When you're abroad, don't forget about us. Even though we'll be far apart, we have to stay in touch. Without any interruptions, we had a great time. After dinner, we went to karaoke and then to a bar. By the time we left the bar, it was 5 in the morning, and the sun was about to rise. I had just gotten back to the hotel and was washing up when I got a call from Mark. "Leo, I've arranged a rental for you near the company. You can stay there for a couple of weeks instead of the hotel." I was broke and didn't want to borrow from anyone, so I had gotten a credit card to tide me over. But Mark had seen my predicament and arranged a place for me to stay. I thanked Mark and moved in. Now, there were only 2 weeks left before I had to leave. I went to work as usual every day. After work, I would cook with my colleagues, drink, and chat. Life was good. One day, on my way home from work as usual, I saw Emily at the company entrance. She stood in front of me and said she wanted to talk. I raised an eyebrow at her. "We have nothing to talk about." Emily grabbed my sleeve in public, looking pitiful. "Come on, Leo. I know you can't bear to leave me. You're just mad because you think Mason is my secret child, right? You really don't have to be like this. We can talk about anything. Mason really isn't my child. I didn't cheat on you." With that, Emily showed me pictures of her cousin pregnant and a DNA test result for her and Mason. They really weren't mother and son. But I didn't care about the truth anymore. The damage they had done to me was real. The child was just a trigger. Through him, I learned that Emily and her mother never really saw me as family. In fact, they didn't even see me as a person. Seeing my silence, Emily thought I still didn't believe her. She sighed and explained, "I was away on a business trip for a year. I was actually taking care of my cousin. I didn't answer your calls and only texted you because I was afraid you would overthink things." Emily's excuse was weak. What did her cousin's child have to do with her? If she really only cared about the child, why couldn't she just be honest? And she still didn't know that Ryan had already told me the truth. Ryan was the one she loved but couldn't have. That's why Emily would drop everything to help him. And her beloved mother, of course, would side with her. In the past, whenever I questioned her, Emily would remain silent. Now the roles were reversed, and it was my turn to be silent. It wasn't long before she got impatient. "Please, Leo, don't give me the silent treatment. If you really think I did something wrong, just say it, and I'll apologize." I looked up at her. How interesting. She used to watch me go crazy, and then turn around and accuse me of not loving her enough because I couldn't read her mind. She blamed me for not loving her enough to understand her. Now that the tables were turned, she was accusing me of giving her the silent treatment. She always had her twisted logic. I didn't want her to keep pestering me after we broke up, so I finally spoke. "Do you really not know what our problem is? I took care of your mother for 5 years, and in the end, I was just raising 2 ungrateful vipers." Emily stiffened and tried to explain. "I'm sorry. My mother is just sick." And she says some harsh things. Her mother was sick, but she had joined in on humiliating me. Every time, her mother would make unreasonable demands, like asking me to make fried rice without eggs. When I couldn't, she would throw a tantrum and insult me. Emily would just stand by and watch, and afterward, she would just say, "She's a patient." Her mother was a patient, but what about her? When had she ever stood on my side and said a single word in my defense? I thought to myself, calming down, that was all in the past. We were together for 7 years. I won't hold the past against you. You just stop bothering me. Let's part on good terms. I had truly let go. But after I let go, Emily, who had always ignored me, refused to let go. She wanted me to make a scene, to have a fight, even to get physical. Because anger meant there was still a chance to fix things. But all I felt was a calm acceptance, like someone who had seen through the world. This made Emily realize something. I wasn't just sulking, I was really leaving. She rushed forward and hugged me, her voice choked with sobs. Leo, we were wrong before. I'll make it up to you, okay? We'll have another wedding, and I'll invite all our relatives to witness our love. She looked at me pleadingly, but I just shook my head, indifferent, and pushed her away. There's no need. There was no love between us. It was just my one-sided love from the beginning. I went home and lived as usual. But Emily didn't back down because of my words. Instead, she went back to how she was when she first pursued me. She diligently prepared breakfast for me every day and sent me endless flowers. She also sent me messages asking how I was doing. Leo, remember to eat the breakfast I bought you. Don't forget to eat when you get busy with work. It won't taste good cold. It's getting cold. Remember to wear more clothes. I had a sweater delivered to your company. Don't catch a cold. My colleagues were all envious, remarking on what a great girlfriend I had. But I wasn't happy. I didn't want anything from her. I had fallen for her tricks once, and it had cost me everything. I ended up with nothing. She was only this nice before she got what she wanted. Once we were together, she would show her true colors again. It was another beautiful afternoon. She took it upon herself to pick me up from work, happily saying, Leo, do you remember what day it is today? Of course, I remembered. Before I could answer, Emily said excitedly, it's our 7-year anniversary. Let's have a candlelight dinner tonight, okay? I looked at her, confused. So, she wasn't forgetful. Ever since our first anniversary, she had not only forgotten every anniversary, but she had also bailed on me with all sorts of excuses. Every time I asked her about it, she would just play dumb. I'm sorry. I'm just so busy with work that I keep forgetting. Tell me again and I'll write it on the calendar this time. I definitely won't forget again. I used to believe her words, and every time she stood me up, I would just call her a little dummy. But looking at her bright eyes now, I realized that I was the dummy. She told me the address and the room she had booked, then took a call and ran off, not giving me a chance to refuse. After thinking about it, I decided it was necessary to make things clear with her and get her to stop bothering me. So I agreed to the date. But I waited and waited at the restaurant, and she never showed up. My messages to her went unanswered. Sir, are you still waiting? The restaurant was about to close, and the waiter couldn't help but rush me. I was already dizzy with hunger. I took the menu, ordered, and ate by myself. She had stood me up again. On my way back, I happened to run into Emily and her family, carrying the sleeping child, heading home. Emily was holding Ryan's hand, laughing and talking with him. It was Ryan who saw me first and called out, Isn't that Leo? Just finished dinner and heading home? Emily froze, then remembered something and quickly explained, Oh,
I'm sorry, Leo.
I forgot about our dinner. Ryan pulled her close, his voice full of sympathy. Don't always blame yourself. Mason was just being naughty and insisted on going to the night market. That's why we're late. With that, Ryan pushed the child's head down, forcing him to apologize to me. The child woke up and burst into tears. Emily's mom was heartbroken. After comforting the child for a bit, she started scolding me again. Leo, you're gone. But you still have to come back and make us miserable. Are you only happy when you've torn our family apart? And to think I cooked for you for 2 years, treating you like my own son. Emily's mom's words got uglier and uglier. Emily's face turned pale, and for once, she actually stepped in to stop her. Mom, that's enough. It was the first time Emily had ever scolded her mother. She was furious. Did I say something wrong? Did the grocery money for the past 2 years just appear out of thin air? You're so carefree. You can just leave whenever you want. Fine. Since you're leaving, let's settle the bill. If you don't pay me for the 2 years of cooking, we're not done. Looking at the aggressive woman in front of me, I just felt a sense of irony. Back then, She had been the one to gently pull me over for dinner, saying it was just a meal, nothing to worry about. But I always felt bad, so I would bring expensive gifts every time I visited. I would give her red envelopes during holidays and come over to help clean every few days. But now, she felt like she had lost out and was coming to me to settle the score. I stopped and laughed. Fine. If we're going to settle the score, let's be thorough. For the past 5 years, I've been taking care of you, spending my own money. I sold my parents' house to pay for your medical bills. So let's figure out exactly how much you owe me. I took out my phone and started calculating. But many of the expenses were lost in the daily grind. I didn't have the habit of keeping track of my spending, so now I could only remember the big-ticket items. Seeing that I was actually serious, Emily's mom was speechless. She turned her wheelchair around and faced away from me. Ryan came out to smooth things over with a smile. Leo, Mom was just saying that in anger. You don't have to take it so seriously. She's an elder, after all. We younger people have to be more tolerant, right? I couldn't get a clear calculation, so I put my phone away and ignored them. But Emily thought I had given in and chased after me.
I'm sorry, Leo.
My mom gave you a hard time again. Ever since her mother got sick, she had always found ways to make things difficult for me, saying hurtful things. But before long, she would change her tune and apologize, saying she was just confused from her illness and didn't mean it. At first, I also thought it was because of her illness. But now I realized that her mother was just that kind of person. She was just afraid that if she chased me away, there would be no one to take care of her. Now that she had Ryan, she was fearless and completely let loose. And Emily would always just say, "You've been wronged," but she never took my side in front of her mother. Meeting my cold gaze, she panicked. Suddenly, Emily remembered something and grabbed my hand, asking cautiously, "By the way, Leo, where are all the gifts I gave you? You used to keep them in the cabinet like treasures. I was cleaning up today and couldn't find them. Did you take them all with you?" She thought I had moved my things out. I laughed coldly and shook her hand off. "You mean that trash?" I threw it all away. Emily froze, looking up at me in disbelief, her eyes red. Those were all the little things that showed our love. How could you throw them away? Love? I smiled. Where? Don't you have another family? I was just your free labor. She would cook for Ryan and his son, do crafts with them, and play games with them gently. But in our 7 years together, she spent almost no time with me. The wind blew Emily's hair, and large tears rolled down her cheeks. "Leo, how could you think of me like that? Are you really leaving? Are you really leaving me?" I walked away quickly. Emily chased after me, calling my name. I didn't stop. I was heading towards a wider world, free from all restraints. Half a month passed in a flash. My colleagues reluctantly had lunch with me. "Leo is leaving this afternoon. We wish him a safe journey and a bright future." I raised my glass of soda and accepted everyone's good wishes with a smile. After everyone had left, Emily appeared behind me. "I know you don't like your colleagues seeing me, so I waited for them to leave." She put on a lovely look, as if she was being very considerate. "Your flight is at 4 this afternoon, right? I'll take you there. We've been together for so many years. We should put a proper end to our relationship." I ignored her and got in a taxi. As I got to the curb, I saw Ryan leaning against his car. Emily rushed over to him. "Ryan, let's take Leo to the airport." Ryan pushed his sunglasses up and said, "Sorry, I had a drink on the way here. I can't drive." "Emily, why don't you drive him?" "Oh right, you're not used to my car." With that, Ryan looked at me, twirling the keys in his hand. "Why don't you drive yourself, Leo? I'll get a driver to bring it back later. It's a bit of a hassle, but anything for you is a big deal. We can't be careless." Emily hesitated, then finally sighed. "Forget it. Let's not trouble you. We'll take a taxi." While they were bickering, the taxi I had called arrived. I got in and Emily quickly followed. I raised an eyebrow. "Get out." Emily gripped the seatbelt tightly, acting like a spoiled child. "I'm gonna see you off. This is my last wish. You don't want me to have any regrets, do you?" I couldn't be bothered to argue with her and was about to say she could do whatever she wanted. Just then, Ryan frantically knocked on the car window. Emily, it's bad. Mason is sick. Emily panicked, unbuckled her seatbelt, and got out of the car. Then let's go take him to the hospital right away. I told the driver to go. Seeing the car drive away, Emily frantically chased after it, banging on the window. Leo, wait for me. I'll definitely come and see you off. Until the plane took off, she never appeared. When I landed, her apology finally arrived. I'm sorry. I was taking care of Mason and got delayed. Are you still at the airport? I'll be right there. I had expected this outcome. Every time before, I had waited for her like this. But she would always say she was busy with work. In reality, she was with Ryan and his son. I was never her priority. I left without hesitation and blocked all her contact information. Everything was starting over. Emily rushed to the airport, but she couldn't find any trace of Leo. Her calls and texts went unanswered. She knew Leo was mad at her, so she didn't dare to bother him for a while. When the custom-made figurine finally arrived, Emily was overjoyed. She finally had a reason to contact Leo. But when she sent him a picture, a red exclamation mark appeared on the screen. Leo had deleted and blocked her. She tried calling him, but the call wouldn't go through. It was then that she truly panicked. Leo had really left her, but she still couldn't believe it. For 7 years, Leo had done everything for her. How could he just abandon her over a misunderstanding? Emily went to Leo's company to ask about his new location, but the company kept Leo's whereabouts confidential. Mark, who had never liked her, was even less likely to say anything. Defeated, Emily returned home. The house was a mess, littered with trash. Her mother sat in her wheelchair, her eyes red from crying. A puddle of urine on the floor had already dried, but the stench lingered. Young Mason had thrown everything off the coffee table and was now sitting on the floor, wailing. Ryan, the child is crying so loudly. Why aren't you doing anything? Emily picked up the child to comfort him first, then went to the bedroom. All she saw was Ryan, headphones on, engrossed in a video game. When Leo moved out, Ryan had volunteered to move in, supposedly to protect them from being bullied and to help care for her mother. Emily and her mother were happy to agree. But who would have thought that after Ryan moved in, he not only didn't help with her mother, but he also needed Emily to take care of his every need. Emily called his name a few more times. But from the gaming room, only the frantic clicking of the keyboard could be heard. She had no choice but to clean up herself. When she got to the dining table, she saw that the takeout boxes from lunch hadn't been cleaned up. The trash can had been knocked over by the child, and the floor was covered in filth. Emily changed her mother's pants first. Seeing the old woman's silence, she sighed. Mom, maybe we should use adult diapers. Her mother's face immediately darkened. No, I'm not a child. I don't need them. When Leo was here, he always took care of these things right away. Emily got annoyed. Mom, he's gone now. If you don't use them, who's going to help you? If I stay home to take care of you, who's going to earn money to support the family? Emily firmly ordered the diapers. This time, her mother said nothing and just turned her head away in defeat. She had just finished helping her mother wash up and was about to rest her aching back. Mason started crying, saying he was hungry. Emily hadn't even sat down on the sofa before she got up to cook. When she opened the pot, she found that the leftover noodles from over a week ago hadn't been thrown out. The pot hadn't been washed and had fermented into a disgusting, sticky mess, the smell of which was nauseating. Mason threw his toys while following Emily into the kitchen. Mommy, I want to eat now. Emily tried to gently coax him while cleaning. Just a minute, sweetie. Mommy will cook for you as soon as she's done washing the pot. Okay? Mason was not happy. He grabbed Emily's pants and cried loudly. No, I want to eat now. Emily lost her balance and fell to the floor. The trash from the pot spilled out, splattering all over the kitchen. She cried out in pain. Ignoring the child's cries, she yelled towards the gaming room. Ryan, I fell. Come here. Quick. There was no response from the gaming room for a long time. Finally, a cheer from Ryan. We got this. This round is in the bag. Emily's nose tingled. She remembered Leo. Once, she had just dropped a spoon while getting something from the kitchen. Leo, who had been hanging laundry, had rushed in to check on her. But now Ryan had clearly heard her but pretended not to know. She lay on the floor for a long time. Mason, hungry, bit her arm and cried. Tears streamed down Emily's face. She had no choice but to struggle to her feet, order takeout, and put the child to sleep. The kitchen was still a mess. She had just walked into the bathroom when she saw that the trash can was overflowing with tissues that no one had bothered to throw out. The clothes in the washing machine had been sitting there all afternoon, undried. There were so many things to do that she didn't know where to start. When Leo was around, the house was always clean. Clothes would be fresh and clean when she put them on again. The house was spotless, as if there was never any trash. But Leo had been gone for less than a month, and the house had become a garbage dump, filled with all sorts of bad smells. She vaguely remembered that the house used to smell nice, like warm sunshine. Leo was someone who enjoyed life. He would buy fresh flowers every day, use aromatherapy, and keep the house in perfect order. She was lost in her fantasies when her mother's calls snapped her out of it. Her mother wanted a glass of water, but she only drank it at exactly 104. Too hot was no good, and even a little too cool was unacceptable. She looked at the temperature display on the smart mug and said flatly, "Just a little warmer and it'll be perfect." Emily suppressed her anger and coaxed her mother first. Before she was done, Mason woke up from the sofa and started crying. Emily went from comforting the old to comforting the young. Finally, the takeout arrived. She got the food and chased Mason around the house to feed him. By the time she was done and ready to eat, the food was gone, leaving only some soupy residue. Even the rice was just leftovers. Emily couldn't take it anymore. She ran to the gaming room and demanded, "Ryan, you've gone too far. I'm so tired from taking care of the child, and you do nothing. How could you eat all the food and not even leave me a bite?" Ryan's eyes never left the screen, but he said, "I'm sorry, Emily. I thought you had already eaten. Why don't you wait for me? I'll order you something else after this round. It's almost over." He was the same as always, apologizing with his words but doing nothing. Emily knew she couldn't count on him. She left, frustrated, and rummaged through the house, finding a box of unopened bread. A sticky note was attached to the box, with a handwriting Emily knew all too well. Emily's favorite sugar-free whole wheat bread. Leo had bought it for her as breakfast, knowing she was trying to lose weight. But before he could even give it to her, they were over. Emily burst into tears. After she finished eating, her crying grew louder. But Ryan, hearing her, just turned up the volume of his game. When he lost, he even complained, "Emily, can you keep it down? I can't hear the footsteps." Her crying received no comfort and even woke up the child. Only her mother, worried about her, called her name many times. When she got no response, she tried to get out of bed and fell. Emily couldn't even vent her emotions. She rushed to get Ryan to help. But Ryan just raised an eyebrow. "Emily, hold on. I'm about to win this game. Just a second, I'm almost done." Emily was furious. She had to call 911 herself, holding the child while taking care of her mother. The nurse on duty saw her struggling and couldn't help but stand up for her. "Seriously, where's the child's father? Why isn't he here? He's just letting you take care of the old and the young by yourself?" Emily couldn't say anything, just cried silently. The thoughtful, gentle boyfriend was gone, lost because of her. Suddenly, Emily remembered that she still knew Leo's phone number. She borrowed the nurse's phone and dialed. After a long time, the call connected. A familiar voice came through. "Hello, this is Leo. Who is this?" The moment she heard Leo's voice, Emily couldn't hold back her tears. "Leo, can you come back, please?" The nurse, not knowing the whole story, immediately pictured a deadbeat dad abandoning his wife and child. She snatched the phone and scolded, "Are you even a man? You're just going to let your wife take care of a child and an old person all by herself?" On the other end of the line, Leo said calmly, "You're mistaken. We broke up a long time ago, and that's not my child." The nurse was stunned. She was about to apologize when she realized the line had been disconnected. Emily kept redialing, but the call never went through again. Later, when she tried calling from other numbers, She found that Leo had already disconnected that number. She had no choice but to return to her life. As time went on, Ryan's bad habits were exposed one by one, and he refused to work. He would quit a job after just a few days, complaining about how unfair the world was and how no one recognized his talent. He spent his days wallowing in self-pity and playing video games. Frustrated, Emily had no choice but to go to work and let Ryan take care of the house. But Ryan couldn't be bothered. One day, while Emily was at work, her mother called her, saying the child had fallen off the sofa and there was blood everywhere. Ryan wouldn't move. She had to rush home, leaving work early, and take the child to the hospital. After that, it was one thing after another. The child would fall or go hungry because no one fed him or get hurt playing with glass bottles. Whenever Mason wasn't at kindergarten, he was always causing trouble. This went on day after day. Emily had to frequently take leave from work to take care of him. Eventually, exhausted by her home life and with poor work performance, she was fired. When she came home with a box of her belongings, she found that her mother had been sitting in her own waste for a day, and no one had changed her. The stench was unbearable. Her mother pointed to her bruised forehead and cried, "Not only did Ryan not take care of me, he even complained about the smell and hit me. He had just been lazy before, but now he was violent." Emily couldn't take it anymore and went to confront Ryan. But Ryan had just lost 9 games in a row and was in a terrible mood. He didn't hear what Emily was saying and just slapped her to the ground. Emily's face stung, and she was in too much pain to cry. It was the first time she had ever been hit. When Leo was around, he never even said a harsh word to her, let alone hit her. But Ryan dared to hit her. Emily got up, flipped the table over, and smashed the computer and keyboard. She pointed at Ryan furiously. "Get out of my house. Get out." This time, Ryan didn't lose his temper. Instead, he knelt in front of her and slapped his own face repeatedly.
I'm sorry, Emily.
"I'll never hit you again. Please forgive me. I was just confused." Looking at the pleading Ryan, Emily's heart softened, and she chose to forgive him. But domestic violence is a slippery slope. After that, Ryan's confused moments of violence became more and more frequent. But every time he hit her, he would be very remorseful, not only kneeling and apologizing, but also cleaning the house, acting very obedient. But after a few days, he would revert to his old self. Emily was led by the nose, thinking he could still change, until her mother's condition worsened. When she was about to use her life savings to save her mother, she found that Ryan had already taken the money to invest in stocks and lost everything. Emily finally made up her mind. She couldn't keep Ryan around anymore. This time, no matter how much Ryan begged, she remained firm. But to stay, Ryan dragged the child to the rooftop, forcing Emily to give in. Without money, her mother couldn't be hospitalized. Emily could only take her home to care for her, but her condition worsened day by day. In her final moments, she grabbed Emily's hand and pleaded, her voice weak, "Emily, are you still in touch with Leo? Mom wants to see him one last time to say she's sorry." Emily took out her phone and opened an account. She had been searching for Leo for years after he disappeared, and she had actually found his account. But seeing his posts of delicious food, parties, and travels, she didn't dare to disturb his life. This time, she wanted to fulfill her mother's last wish. She sent him a message. "Leo, it's been so many years. Are you doing okay? My mother is passing away. She wants to see you one last time. Is that possible?" But she never received a reply. In the end, her mother passed away without seeing Leo one last time. On the day of her mother's funeral, Emily sent Leo another message, hoping he would suddenly appear, grab her hand, and lead her to the light. But she waited and waited. She didn't get a message from Leo, but she did get news that Mason had gotten into trouble at school. 5 years had passed. Mason was now 10 years old. She rushed to the school and learned that Mason had been bullying another child. Emily suppressed her anger and patiently advised, "Mason, Mommy has taught you not to bully others. Apologize to him now." Mason looked at Emily with hatred and shoved her down the stairs. "You're not my real mom. What right do you have to tell me what to do?" With that, he ran off in a rage. In the end, it was a teacher who took Emily to the hospital. Mason refused to visit her, even saying that Tiger Mom can just die in the hospital like Grandma, and leave the house to me. Emily remembered how well-behaved Mason was as a child. Looking at him now, her heart died. The child she had raised with her own hands not only hated her, but also wished she were dead. Fortunately, her injuries weren't serious this time. She had just finished getting bandaged up when she got a call from her boss. "Emily, are you done with your mother's funeral?" After Emily lost her job, she had to take care of her family, and many companies wouldn't hire her. She could only work in the restaurant industry near her home, earning money while also taking care of her family. Her boss was usually good to her, and even though she had taken a lot of leave, he hadn't fired her. Now that the restaurant needed her, she didn't dare to delay. Even with her injuries, she took a taxi back. But as she was changing into her uniform, she saw a familiar figure surrounded by a crowd. It was the Leo she had been dreaming of. He was no longer the inconspicuous man in casual clothes who had waited on her. He was now wearing a designer suit, his face more stern and mature. This Leo was a stranger to her, but she didn't care. She had missed Leo for 5 years, and today she finally saw him. She was about to go up and greet him, to try and rekindle their relationship. She didn't want the ungrateful father and son, Ryan and Mason, anymore. Full of hope, she was about to rush over when she saw Leo take another woman's hand. The woman was gentle and graceful, with sweet dimples on her cheeks when she smiled. Leo had returned after 5 years and become the general manager of their company's domestic branch. He was treating all the employees to dinner today, not only to celebrate his return, but also to announce his upcoming wedding. An employee in the crowd joked, "Is this a promotion party or a wedding reception, Mr. Chun?" Leo held the woman's hand and said to her gently, "Of course it's a celebration. The wedding reception won't be this shabby. My wife can't be wronged in the slightest." The employees were showered with a wave of affection and started chanting for them to kiss. Seeing this, Emily stopped in her tracks. She turned around and ran into the back kitchen, tears in her eyes. Emily knew she had no more chances. She had lost Leo forever.